NaNoWriMo 2020 starts tomorrow, and I thought I would give you guys a bit of information about the novel that I'm working on this year, since I'm going to be vlogging weekly this year, and I thought it would make sense if I explained a bit of my book to you so that when I'm actually talking about it during the month, you guys aren't like, what is she on about? So yeah, that's what this very rambly and disjointed video is going to be about, me explaining what my NaNoWriMo 2020 novel is all about. I've been doing different forms of NaNoWriMo since 2012 when I started with the Youth Writers Program, and I've never written 50k in a month yet, but hopefully I can do it eventually. Also, warning, I'm cheating this year because I already wrote like 15k of my novel, and I'm immediately porting all those words into my NaNoWriMo like stats and stuff, but I won't tell if you won't. My NaNoWriMo 2020 project is a YA fantasy retelling of Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, and it is currently titled Crooked. And the premise of it is, what if Captain Hook had a daughter? And that's a very simple question, but obviously the answer that I'm giving is a lot more complicated and also a lot more specific to how I envision an interesting story could go if Captain Hook did end up having a kid. It's a story about growing up, finding who you want to be, revenge, and letting go. There is one main character, but overall there's about like 6 characters who were very important to the plot, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them. Ella is our protagonist, and she is the daughter of Captain Hook. She's struggling with who she wants to be, and most people around her are coming up with their own ideas of who she should become. And so a lot of her character arc is her trying to find her own identity and not listen to the other outside forces that are trying to make her path be their path for her and not her path for herself. She is a hardcore Slytherin, and as she grows up, her determination only gets stronger and her ambitions only get bigger. Then we have Captain Hook, who really doesn't need an introduction, but he's still getting one. So, Captain Hook. He is slightly scary, he's dramatic, and he's someone who holds his secrets maybe a little too close to his chest, which is something that annoys Ella a lot. Peter Pan! He is the person who takes Ella to Neverland, and they become close friends while there. He is forgetful, a very strange boy, and he is absolutely full of himself. Smee is actually the person who raised Ella for most of her life, and both of them live in London, and Smee is honestly like the best adoptive dad Ella could have, and he's super supportive of her. The last 2 characters on this list are actually characters who are original to this story, and the first one is Basil Harcourt, who's actually better known by the name Bazza. And he is a high-ranking pirate on the Jolly Roger, and from the moment that Ella and him meet, they both have an intense dislike of each other, which leads to a rivalry that just gets worse and worse as the story progresses. And the last important character on this list is Barrett. He is a cabin boy on the Jolly Roger, and he's about Ella's age. He starts the story off a bit sassy, but as the story goes on, he turns into like a soft boy. And he is really Ella's only friend while she's on the pirate ship. I've been working on this story since 2017, but this current draft has only been in progress since March of this year. Like, I've been planning it since then, but I only started working on the actual, like, written draft in late July. Previously, I have outlined and re-outlined this story, and big picture things and little details keep changing basically every single time I've done that. Certain beats have stayed generally the same, and there's one big spoilery beat that has never changed, but other than that, there's a lot of how do we get from point A to point B kind of beats that have changed drastically over the course of me working on this story. I wrote 3k on the story during Camp NaNoWriMo in April of 2017, and then I wrote an 11k unfinished draft version of it during NaNoWriMo 2017, and since then I haven't really done any actual drafting. I've just been having mess after mess of outline, but they've been like pretty decently long outlines, but they've been horrible, and I keep having to go back and try and redo the entire story, but now it feels different. Hopefully this time is different, because this time things actually make sense. So, fingers crossed I actually get a decently sized first draft out of my outline and all my planning notes. So that's all of my, like, normal stuff that I want to share with you so far about my story, but I also have some fun bonus things that I want to share. So, like, music and a cover and things like that. So first I'm going to show you what my mock-up cover looks like, and it's actually this. And it is a picture that I found on Pinterest that just showed up in Pinterest one day, and I was like, I was meant to make this my fake temporary cover of my novel. So that's what that is, and I made the font on top of it in Canva, but honestly I could have done this with like anything, because it's not complicated. Speaking of Pinterest, I actually have a Pinterest board for this book that I will leave the link to in the description in case you're interested in actually getting a look at it, and it has boards, like section boards, for all of the main characters that I mentioned, and then also there's boards for like the groups, like Lost Boys and the Pirates, and then there's like location pins in sections, and then there's also a section that's just like a bunch of vibey pins. So peruse it at your own leisure. I'm sure it'll be fun a bit, or don't, that's fine too. I also made a Spotify playlist for my book, and I'm going to share a link to the Spotify playlist below, but I'm also going to share like about 4 songs with you guys so that you can kind of see what's on my playlist and kind of get a better idea for the vibe that I'm going with, or just hear some good songs.
Oh, Captain, let's make a deal where we both say the things that we both really feel. I feel scared and I'm starting to sink, and I only sink deeper the deeper I think. If you want to start a fight, you better throw the first punch, make it a good one. And if you want to make it through the night, you better say my name right, the good, the bad, and the dirty. And I want a moment to be real, want to touch things I don't feel, want to hold on and feel I belong. And how can the world want me to change? They're the ones that say the same. They don't know me, 'cause I'm not here.
Another fun thing I thought I would share with you guys is I actually found the Enneagrams for 4 of my main characters. I didn't find Enneagrams for Barrett or for Smee, but hope you appreciate my probably very inaccurate Enneagrams for Ella and Hook and Pan and Bassa. So I think Ella is probably 4 wing 5. I think Hook is probably 3 wing 4. I think Peter Pan is Enneagram 7, and Bassa is probably Enneagram 8. But again, I really know nothing about the Enneagram, so that's potentially very inaccurate. But if it is accurate, then, and you understand the Enneagram better than I do, then you probably have a pretty good idea of what kind of people those main characters are. Otherwise, if I got it wrong and you know a lot about the Enneagram, you have a completely misguided and misinformed version in your head of who my characters are. So, sorry about that. And last but not least, I asked my friends on Instagram if they had any questions they wanted me to answer in regards to my book. And so I got a decent amount of questions, so I will be answering all of them at the end of the video, which is now. At Cosmic Apocalypse asked me 3 different questions, and her first question is, how did the idea to start writing this book come about? I grew up listening to an audiobook version of Peter Pan on my Kindle, and so I had the story basically drilled into my head. So when I was older and I was thinking, I really like the idea of a retelling. I should write a retelling. That'd be fun. And I was thinking about what I could possibly write a retelling on. I was like, oh, I should probably do one on Peter Pan, since I'm pretty sure I know that story well enough that putting my own spin on it wouldn't like ruin the main reason for the story existing in the first place. So that's probably why I decided that Peter Pan would be a retelling, and as why I decided to have it be a retelling about if Captain Hook had a daughter and then the daughter's kind of like a Slytherin. That's probably because I heard about the book series for And I Darken, and that's basically a interesting female Slytherin character. So I would blame my upbringing of listening to Peter Pan over and over again, and the fact that And I Darken is a book that I've known about for a while, combined together, that's probably why I ended up writing this story, or wanting to write this story in the first place. Her next question is, what has been the most challenging aspect? And for me, so far, I think the most challenging aspect has been trying to take pre-existing characters and locations and make them uniquely my own while not straying too far away from the original source material. Her last question is, do you relate to any of the characters? And for this question, you'd probably expect me to answer with, oh, I relate to my main character, and while I kind of do, I'm actually going to answer the question with saying that I relate to Captain Hook. This is because we both refuse to give up on or walk away from a goal that we've set. And this is because the idea of being thought of as the person who failed their goal is a lot more painful than the long journey we're going to have to go on to achieve our goal. Which is why when I have a story idea that I am determined to write, I will spend altogether too many years painfully trying to make it work. Because if I said I would write the story, I said I would write the story. Which is why we're here now. It is noted, though, that he is a bit more murdery than me, but we also do enjoy a good show of theatrics, so it kind of, evens it out, I guess. At Clefhanger asks, how do you come up with the stories? Concept then write, or just write as it came to you? I will come up with the concept, which is sometimes from images on Pinterest, but in this case it was me mashing up a bunch of things that I like, and then the concept of the story came out of that. And then once I have a concept that's an actual concept, like it's more than a tagline, or a base premise, I will start outlining the story. I am not a discovery writer and I'm not a pantser, so for me, getting all my ideas out and sorted before I start writing is very important. Jade from my Nancy Drew playthroughs asked, what is your favorite aspect of what you have so far? And my answer to that would be the fact that in 2017, I had 11K of a basically full draft, and now I have about 15K of hardly any of my book, and that's very validating to see over the past 3 years that I'm able to pace my story writing a lot better and have more, not filler ideas, but just ideas in general, and that I can write a lot more scenes than I originally tried writing in the first draft of the story. So basically what I'm trying to say is 2017 me was very bad at writing drafts, but 2020 me is actually decent at writing drafts, so it's nice to see actual proof that I've improved writing-wise, instead of just being like, yeah, she writes better. It's clearly I have to be writing better because I'm writing more words, which is something I've struggled with for a while, so yay. And the last question is from Rosie, who's been in some of my other playthroughs. She asks, who is your favorite character? And this one is a very easy answer, because the answer is Barrett. And he's actually a character who used to be in different versions of the book, but I cut him out because he was supposed to be a friend of Ella's at the beginning and the end of the book. So back in London, she would have a friend named Barrett, and then she would see him when she returned to London at the end of the book. But I cut him because I was like, that's not working. But then I realized I should have a cabin boy character. I should have someone who's her age. Also, the pirates need a cabin boy. And thus I was like, oh, I have a name that I'm not using anymore, Barrett. And then the character kind of basically ended up from there kind of taking on the, Ella needs a friend. It's gonna be Barrett again, but this time it's a way cooler version of Barrett. So yes, Barrett's my favorite character. Hands down. Nothing bad will ever happen to that boy because I love him too much. And that's all I'm gonna share for now. So I really hope that you enjoyed the video, and if you're interested in the rest of my writing journey with this book, you can tune in next week and you can see the first weekly vlog. If you're doing NaNoWriMo this year, I would love to hear what you're working on, and if you want, we can be buddies on the site. I'll leave my link to my page, NaNoWriMo page, in the description with all the other links that I'm gonna be sharing, and so we can keep tabs on each other's stats. Sounds like fun? I don't know. And that's really all I have to say. So hopefully I'll see you next week, and have a good Halloween today. Hope you eat a bunch of candy and have fun dressing up. Even if you're staying inside, you should be staying inside. But yeah, so see you next week. Bye!